In what many political insiders are describing as one of the most shocking and potentially historic developments in contemporary South African politics, economic freedom fighters leader Julius Malema has found himself at the center of a rapidly escalating legal and political storm that could fundamentally alter the country's political landscape. According to senior legal analysts, Malema could face a prison sentence of up to 27 years if the allegations reportedly under investigation are ultimately proven in court, a possibility that has stunned supporters and critics alike. The unfolding drama began in the early hours of the morning when authorities executed a highly secretive and meticulously planned raid on Malema's private residence in Johannesburg, an operation that has since ignited nationwide debate about justice, power, and political accountability. Law enforcement sources indicate that the raid was not a spontaneous act but rather the culmination of months of covert surveillance, intelligence gathering, and forensic analysis. Investigators had allegedly been monitoring Malema's movements and communications for an extended period, driven by suspicions that he may have been involved in serious financial and criminal activities with potentially far-reaching political implications. Witnesses described the atmosphere surrounding the operation as tense, surreal, and deeply unsettling, with heavily armed tactical units, forensic experts, and digital analysts descending on the property before dawn in a synchronized action that underscored the gravity of the investigation. Police officers reportedly moved methodically from room to room, collecting and cataloging evidence that included computers, mobile phones, hard drives, stacks of documents, and encrypted digital storage devices, while cyber specialists were seen processing data on site, an unusual step in South African investigations that suggested both urgency and sensitivity. Although officials have not released a comprehensive list of the seized items, multiple sources claim the materials include encrypted communications, detailed bank statements, records of classified financial transactions, and confidential correspondence that could potentially link Malema to a complex network of high-level illicit financial dealings. A senior official with direct knowledge of the case, speaking on condition of anonymity, described the volume and sophistication of the recovered material as unprecedented in any investigation involving a political figure of Malema's stature. Adding to the intrigue, Malema's own security personnel were reportedly present during the raid but did not interfere with law enforcement, prompting speculation among analysts that the operation may have been anticipated or that Malema's legal team advised full non-engagement to avoid escalating the situation. Neighbors in the affluent Johannesburg suburb where the raid took place told local media that the scene resembled something out of a crime thriller, with multiple police vehicles lining the street, forensic teams entering and exiting the property, and detectives working in near silence with visible intensity. Legal experts were quick to weigh in on the potential consequences, with prominent constitutional attorneys noting that the offences under investigation, if substantiated, could collectively carry sentences amounting to as much as 27 years in prison, making this one of the most consequential legal battles involving a political leader in post-apartheid South Africa. Such a case, analysts argue, could redefine the national political balance and serve as a litmus test for the resilience and independence of the country's democratic institutions. Even before details of the raid became public, the EFF issued a strongly worded statement condemning the operation as a politically motivated act of intimidation, alleging that law enforcement was acting at the behest of the ruling African National Congress. The party characterized the raid as an attempt to silence revolutionary voices and derail efforts to expose corruption within the state, while urging supporters to remain combat alert, insisting that Malema had nothing to hide. Despite these calls for restraint, public reaction was anything but subdued, as social media platforms erupted with activity within hours, pushing hashtags such as #HandsOffMalema, #StopPoliticalPersecution, and #DefendDemocracy to national prominence. Thousands of EFF supporters flooded online spaces with videos, live streams, and impassioned messages expressing outrage and framing the raid as a direct assault on political dissent, while some party members began calling for nationwide demonstrations, with small groups already gathering outside police stations in Gauteng to protest what they described as political harassment. Responses from other political parties were more measured and divided, with the Democratic Alliance welcoming the investigation on the grounds that no political leader should be above scrutiny, while the ANC adopted a cautious tone, reiterating its commitment to the rule of law and expressing confidence that authorities would handle the matter responsibly. Privately, however, at least one senior ANC figure suggested that the investigation could uncover far more than initially anticipated, possibly revealing financial and political links that cut across party lines. Behind the scenes, investigators are reportedly probing a web of financial connections that may extend well beyond Malema himself, with unconfirmed reports indicating that business leaders, political donors, and even potential foreign contacts are being examined in relation to the suspected activities. If substantiated, such findings could mark the beginning of a sweeping political and legal reckoning, exposing the hidden mechanisms that underpin some of South Africa's most powerful networks. While police officials have confirmed that the raid forms part of a broader national effort to combat organized political and financial crime, they have declined to name specific individuals, citing the sensitivity of the ongoing investigation. Nonetheless, multiple senior law enforcement sources have acknowledged that Malema is a central person of interest, even though no formal charges have yet been laid. For ordinary South Africans, the unfolding saga has been both astonishing and deeply divisive, with some viewing the probe as a long-overdue attempt to confront corruption that has steadily eroded public trust, while others fear it signals a dangerous slide toward authoritarianism and the criminalization of political opposition. As one Johannesburg resident put it, if Malema is guilty, he should face the full force of the law, but if the case proves to be driven by political revenge, it would represent a grave threat to the country's democratic foundations. Political commentators are already mapping out the possible consequences, noting that a conviction would plunge the EFF into an unprecedented leadership crisis, given how closely the party's identity is tied to Malema's combative persona and populist rhetoric, potentially weakening its grassroots momentum and fragmenting its support base. Conversely, if the allegations are widely perceived as politically motivated, Malema could emerge even stronger, transformed into a symbol of resistance against what many of his supporters already see as an oppressive political establishment. For the ANC government, already burdened by its own history of corruption scandals, the stakes are equally high, as a fair and transparent process could help restore confidence in state institutions, while any hint of political manipulation could backfire dramatically, fueling public anger and accelerating opposition consolidation. Although Malema has not been formally arrested or charged at this stage, legal observers suggest that the volume and nature of the seized material could soon lead to prosecution, making the coming weeks critical. As one senior judicial analyst remarked, if the National Prosecuting Authority decides to proceed, the case could become the most closely watched political trial in South African history. Malema himself eventually broke his silence with a brief but defiant message on social media, declaring that while his opponents might try to silence him, they would never silence the truth, a statement that went viral within minutes and intensified already heated public debate. While the final outcome remains uncertain, one reality is already clear: the raid on Julius Malema's Johannesburg home has profoundly shaken South Africa's political and judicial systems, exposing the fragile line between justice and political vengeance. Whether Malema ultimately faces a lengthy prison sentence or re-emerges as a more formidable political force, the episode has already reshaped the national conversation, transforming the issue from a simple question of guilt or innocence into a broader test of truth, power, and the strength of democratic institutions, and ensuring that South Africans will never again view their leaders or their justice system in quite the same way.